Yuki versus Mereoleona. One fighter wins by sabotaging fire at the molecular level without landing a traditional hit. The other treats heat like instinct and turns every inch of damage into data. Virtual mass versus mana sensitivity. What happens when Yuki's mass ignores heat itself? Can Mereoleona's combat instinct predict a force that's technically virtual? Which queen's secret backstory holds the mental edge? And how do you win a duel before your opponent realizes they've been hit? Mereoleona kidnaps squads for training vacations in volcanoes. Yuki asks your type before she crushes your vectors. Stakes, the special grade legacy, Crimson Lion pride, and whether raw aggression ever beats high-level sabotage. Which queen's signature strength hides the crack that decides the match? So let's lay out profiles, pressure, and openings, because identity sets the pace of this fight. On paper, it's a clash of pure identities. Yuki bends the battlefield with virtual mass, pressure shifts, vector flips, air that gets heavy or vanishes in a blink. She calls the core application Star Rage, and with Garuda as a Shikigami, she adds a secondary mass vector that can shove, shear, or anchor from off-angle. Mereoleona lives in the blaze. Mana Zone wrapped tight, speed at close range, pressure that never lets you breathe, and the skill to strike from every angle at once. Backstory sharpens those edges. Yuki once stood on the path to be a star plasma vessel, saw the cost of that fate, and chose to break the cycle of cursed energy instead of serving it. That gives her patience and purpose. Observe, design, dismantle. Mereoleona rejected the royal capital, took the wilderness, and forged herself into the Uncrowned Undefeated Lioness. That's pride as practice. She hunts the strongest reed, then commits with unmatched resolve. The question is how Yuki's pressure math treats a high-temperature, high-oxygen style that wants to devour the arena. Fire needs airflow and steady circulation, and pressure changes bully bolt. Raise density, and you steer a plume. Create a near vacuum, and you starve it. Star Rage turns physics into a game plan, and the arena into her ally. Close the first gap. Yuki's virtual mass ignores the conceptual logic of fire. It doesn't fight flame, it rewrites the medium fire needs. So combustion parameters stop applying in pockets she defines. Flames don't negotiate with a missing atmosphere. But can Mereoleona's speed outpace gravity itself when the vectors shift mid-step? Yuki plays tactician. She studies rhythm before she spins force, stacking layered setups instead of throwing early Hail Marys. That matters because Garuda can apply pressure from a second axis, letting her bend a rush path while she locks the exit with a vacuum. It's clean and plays straight into her patient reads. The weakness is technical. This control is focus intensive, maintaining gradients, aligning vectors, and syncing Garuda's push-pull stacks cognitive load. Mereoleona brings apex predator energy. Leadership sharpened her instincts to cut through noise and chase the real threat. So she forces exchanges to smoke out feints. That aggression floods the zone with tempo and heat, which can break slower planners. Her flaw is technical too. Pure aggression can create tunnel vision. A strategist can bait that lunge and rotate the field under her. Here's the analogy that matters. One of them treats the whole field like a lung. Either you feed it, oxygen in, flames roar, or you choke it. No air, fire coughs out. Yuki can sculpt dense pockets around lanes Mereoleona wants to use, bending flame vectors off angle and making rush paths feel like wading through syrup. Meanwhile, Mana Zone lets Mereoleona feel for those pockets and strike from odd angles to test the seams. So where's the opening? Yuki wants a slow squeeze, pressure rails, faint lanes, and a delayed snap when the lioness bites. Mereoleona wants short, violent checks that pry at those rails before they harden. From here, we can track whose plan converts first and what kind of terrain reed flips momentum when the pace spikes. Which brings us to the core, win conditions and trump cards. The cleanest route for Yuki is control, not clash. Funnel Mereoleona into dense pockets, bend trajectories so the flames skid, then carve micro vacuums that desync her combustion rhythm. She wants control lanes and forced angles, less brawl, more throttle. When air grows heavy, fire loses finesse. When a plume gets yanked sideways, footwork slips. That's how you turn raw heat into wasted motion. Mereoleona's counterpunches, straight through the theory. Use speed feints and a tight mana zone to feel for pressure seams. Probe, pivot, repeat. When she senses the softest vector, she spikes temperature and crashes that lane before Yuki firms it up. High heat makes gases swell, so a quick thermal surge can puff a pocket into instability. If Yuki overextends control, the pocket ripples and the lioness sprints through the wrinkle. You see it in the baited lane tactic. Yuki leaves a false low-density path, invites a rush, then slams virtual mass sideways as Mereoleona commits. Balance slips, a knee buckles. The follow-up compression tags her stance and steals tempo. But that game isn't one way. Mereoleona can cycle short, savage bursts instead of long flames. She reduces oxygen windows, keeps heat local, and denies Yuki the long choke. Less fuel needed per burst means more dashes per minute. Kalados Brachium adds a real wrench. That focused, explosive strike can dump heat and expansion right where Yuki thickens the air, using thermal swelling to rattle a density pocket and disrupt a localized gravity shift. It's a pry bar for seams. And if the Crimson Lion squad is watching, they're absolutely placing bets on whether she just punches the gravity into submission. Focus cost becomes the hidden stat. Yuki tracks multiple gradients at once. Each scramble taxes her concentration. Mereoleona's stamina thrives in those repeats, stacking micro resets until tiny slips appear. One overcorrect, one late vector flip, and the door opens. It all points to a battle where the smarter engine must last longer than the louder one. Trump card, decide the coin flip. Yuki's emergency singular pressure lock is the hard clamp, a single point freeze at leverage. In lore terms, her absolute desperation looks like a localized black hole, a crushing one-shot anchor that trades map control for finality. If she fires early, she loses the board. If she waits, she risks getting pinned before it lines up. Mereoleona's ceiling is Hellfire incarnate, becoming mana itself, pushing output and sense through the blaze. A feral overdrive that treats heat like armor and telemetry. It hits fast, it drains fast. Kalados Brachium chains into it for brutal entries, but fine control slips as power spikes. Mental Edge closes the loop. The all-time Volcano Mountain Trail sharpened her instincts to chase the real threat in hostile terrain. But that hunt can still bite. Misread a fading pocket as failure instead of bait. And Yuki's last trap snaps. The lane collapses, the ledger flips. From here, everything tees up a live test. Does a near finish become the setup for the decisive catch, or the crack that lets the lioness rally? We shift straight into the duel. Heat, pressure, and a faint misread. Mereoleona opens with control. Relentless fire claws and tight arcs. Mana zone tuned to the smallest ripple. She crowds space on purpose. Glancing burns skate across Yuki's guard and calves. Nothing lethal, everything data. Yuki eats the scratches while she calibrates virtual mass output. How dense, how fast, how wide without tripping her own timing. Yuki answers by locking the floor. Pressure climbs. The air grows heavy enough that flame plumes kink sideways on launch. She adds Garuda to the mix, off-angle force as a secondary mass vector to hem movement and shave off exit speed. Mereoleona lunges through a lane and Yuki flips vector mid-step, shoving her into a dense pocket that grips stance and oxygen at once. The slam lands, heat sputters. The arena hears that dull crack of compression and thinks, that's the one, it isn't over. Mereoleona rides the hurt with heat cycling, coughing microbursts that vent the pocket like valves along a pipe. Each burst eats a sliver of air and carves just enough space to keep her from folding. She plants, shoulders square, eyes tracking the rails. Unmatched resolve, doesn't panic, it hunts. She accelerates through the weight with sheer force of will, shocking the room. Point blank blaze through a tightening vice. For a breath, it looks like she wins on a raw entry. Then the rally inside the rally. A faint dip of her hip sells a weak flank. Yuki keys on it and shifts the gradient a hair early. Mereoleona watches the hand tell, threads a blazing jab through the thinnest lane, and clips Yuki's chin with a flash cook shock. It's not a knockout, it's a reset. The lioness takes center, and the heat surges, short and mean, denying long chokes and forcing scrambles. Instinct is perfect at reading real drag, real heat, real flow. But here's the catch we flagged. Instinct can't predict parameters it can't feel. Virtual mass isn't heat or wind. It's a bias on motion that doesn't announce itself to flame sense. Mereoleona reads the world as it is. Yuki edits the parts a sensor can't touch. Decision fatigue starts to tax the control board. Yuki is juggling pockets, lanes, and footwork in split seconds. One late correction, one half beat where a pressure seam doesn't stitch fast enough. Mereoleona feels that seam through her fire and crashes it with a hook and knee combo that pins Yuki to the edge of her own rails. Focus costs pile up. Cornered, Yuki levels her hands like she'll flatten the field with a single, ugly clamp. It reads like surrender. The crowd hears last stand. Mereoleona smiles and armors up for the bulldoze. Except the counter isn't loud, it's silent. No flare, no quake, just air that stops agreeing with fire. The move looks like giving up, but the lanes are narrowing, molecule by molecule, toward a very specific win condition. Final verdict, the stance was bait. Yuki primed a micro-pressure lattice and used gravitational density to drain oxygen from the pocket where Mereoleona committed. The finishing rush hit dead air, flames snuffed mid-swing. Momentum died on contact, and Yuki took control. Execution over raw blast. Technical sabotage, beating spiritual power. That closes the gaps. Virtual mass ignored heat. Instinct couldn't read a virtual force. The mental edge came from lives lived in hostile systems, but the smarter trap won the sprint. The winner is Yuki. Debate it below.
どんな女がタイプだ?
Technical sabotage versus spiritual power. Watch our next brain versus brawn matchup. Noel or Maki. Subscribe and join as a member to see more battle analysis. Next time on Death Battle.